This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, and you're listening to Python's Paradise, your film and music show. And this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, last month, I had a couple of guests on here. I had director Thommy Hutson and the lovely and beautiful Amanda Wiz, who, of course, was in A Nightmare on Elm Street and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And, of course, they were promoting an independent film that Thommy directed called The Id. And I hadn't seen this film until recently. I took part in mailing in or ordering a nice signed copy of this movie on Blu-ray, and it's got all kinds of signatures on it, including Amanda and the fellow I've got on the air with me today. Yes, I got the guy who terrorizes Amanda in this film, Patrick Douglas Peduto. Did I get that right? Did I get that right this time?
Well, it's close. Peduto. And also, her name is Wiss.
Oh, Wiss. I'm striking out badly, aren't I?
No, everyone mispronounces her name and my name.
Well, you know what? I've mispronounced names a lot on here. I know I had Lisa Langlois on here last year, and I called her Lisa Langles, and she never ever corrected me, and I'm like, maybe she's just used to it.
Well, it's only important people get your name right on a check.
Yeah, well, all I could say, a lot of these names I've never seen before, so it's, I guess it's just the familiarity of it, so there you go.
Well, in my case, Peduto, there's only, I think the last census, there were like 13 Peduto families in the entire United States, so no one's ever heard my name.
Oh. Well, Patrick, before we dive into the Id, it's weird. I was watching the movie, and I was watching the interview stuff that was on it as well, and it showed you, you were all decked up in your jacket, and you had your beard, which you didn't have in the movie. And I was gonna say, you were all classed up, and I was like, you're so well spoken, and you're so unlike your role. And I was like, this guy, I gotta talk to this guy because he just seems like a guy with a story. And that's how I come to reach out to you, was through your interview on there. You just seemed like a cool guy.
Well, thank you. I've been working on being cool for 7-8 years, but it doesn't always come true. and what I had on when you saw me in the interview, I've worn the same thing for about 40 years, so it's easy for me to dress in the morning.
Well, you know what? It's actually pretty classy looking. I like, man, they should have had you dressed like that in the movie. Of course, you wouldn't have been as scary, huh?
Well, also, not that I'm worried about being mobbed. It's not like I'm Al Pacino. But, actors sort of don't want to look on the street the way they look in a movie. And you want the character to be appropriate for the story.
That's true.
How does the character move the storyline across? So that's why I basically look different in the movie than I look.
Well, I just wondering, if you could give us some of your background.
I only started acting about 4 years ago. I'm actually in advertising, and I work for 5 of the top advertising agencies in the world in New York City, and have my own ad company. And as a result, I also became a commercial director and member of the Directors Guild. And so for 30 years, I had every job behind the camera and beside the camera and above the camera, everything but in front of the camera. And I never really wanted to get in front of the camera. And then I met a gal who was an acting teacher coach and a life member of the Actors Studio, and I started shooting a documentary for her of her classes, and her classes are about 4 hours long. And I said, well, hell, if I'm going to spend this much time here, I might as well learn something. So I started taking her classes, and I got hooked on it. I got hooked on it because I had already mentioned my age. I think at a certain point, if you're not learning something new and challenging yourself and scaring the hell out of yourself, you're just waiting to die. So I got hooked on acting because it's really tough. It's really hard. It's like balancing 100 balls at one time, and it's very creative in developing the character. It's like I found a lot of similarities to it as being a designer, because you mentioned what I wear personally and what I wore in the id is that's pretty much up to the actor. Like what is your character like? How do they dress? How do they have their hair? How do they whatever? I mean, that's part of the thing. It's like sculpting in flesh, which is kind of interesting because I also went to art school, so all of this stuff sort of crossed over. But then I've done a lot of student films and a lot of really low-budget, short, independent things. And when the id came along and I went in for the audition, I got a call back. And in the callback was the director, Thommy, the producer, Daniel Ferenz, which actually I want to talk about him later. Nobody talks about him much, and he was so key to making this work and making the environment so productive.
And he, of course,
and the
was
other person that was there was Amanda. She had already had the role, and as you know, because she had worked with Thommy on it for a long, long time. And I found out later that Amanda had a great deal to do with me actually getting the part. They had called back 2 or 3 other people besides myself, and at the end of it, Amanda said, which again I found out later, the one you want is Patrick, because you want that kind of like passion and energy. And I think Thommy said, what, he's the only person that can do it? And she said, well, no, I think he's the one out of the people you brought back. I mean, you can do more casting, but that's how I got the part. So it was my big quote-unquote break. I'd never done a feature before. And, here I am. I'm 70 years old, and I'm a newcomer working opposite an incredibly seasoned woman who's much younger than me, but has been in the business since she was, 12 years old or something like that. So it was kind of an interesting situation.
You're the same age as my dad.
There you go.
You were born the same year It's a Wonderful Life came out.
1946.
That's right. Notorious came out that year too. Hitchcock. Yeah. A lot of good stuff. Yeah. But it's interesting, because I don't know if you get this a lot, but you have kind of a youthful appearance.
Well, I've been lucky in many, many ways. God's given me a lot of graces, but I'm also a 6th-degree black belt. I've trained in Taekwondo and Aikido since the 70s. And that had a lot to do with keeping me on the younger side as far as muscle tone and balance and stretch and all sorts of stuff. And so, a lot of life is you get out of it what you put in it. I worked really hard at my martial arts for years and years and years and years. And it's just like if people do yoga or they do whatever they do, if you're true to it and you work hard at it, it has dividends. So for me, the martial arts had dividends.
Yeah, I gotta say though, love the film. I was glad I went into it. I had not seen it, so you're always taking a risk when you order something you hadn't seen. But I had such a wonderful interview with Thommy and Amanda that I thought, what? Not only will I order the film, I'm going to get the one that's got all the signatures on it. I wasn't able to get to L.A. In fact, I've never been outside New Brunswick.
Oh, well, there you go.
Do you know where I'm located?
I've never been to New Brunswick.
You know where it is?
I know it's north of me. Americans are terrible on geography.
The closest we have with celebrity, with as far as celebrities go, and I always tell my guests this, is I always ask them if they heard of the Trailer Park Boys.
Mm-hmm.
You know who they are?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're about the closest we have for celebrities, the Trailer Park
Well,
Boys.
well, a lot of Canadians come here and are very successful in acting and in film.
Yeah, I've interviewed quite a few of them. Some of them right in the New York area where you are, and in fact, one of them in particular had a New Brunswick connection. His wife is from New Brunswick, and I thought that was a pretty cool connection.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but I watched the id, and you mentioned, of course, Daniel Farrand, of course, is connected to the Halloween franchise, and you have Thommy Hutson. Now, Thommy Hutson, I come to be familiar with because of the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street documentaries he did, and I've done right at this date 9 interviews from the Friday the 13th franchise, and a Nightmare on Elm Street. I got my first one back in, I think it was September. I had Lisa Wilcox on here, and she was my 50th, which was interesting. And then I had Tommy and Amanda, and I've been trying for a long time to get Amanda. And when I found out I could get her with Tommy, I thought, good, I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because Tommy he did such a wonderful job on those, the Crystal Lake Memories and the Nightmare on Elm Street, Never Sleep Again, those documentaries, and all those people that he brought in to interview, that I had to check out what his feature film was going to be with the id. And he's got some tremendous talent, and he shows what you can do with a limited budget, that you can really make a really slick looking movie. What was he like as a director?
He was interesting. It was the first thing he's ever directed, and actually, ironically, it's he didn't write it, which gives it a new degree of difficulty. But he was definitely the guardian of the story. He definitely knew what he was looking for, and he gave the actors an incredible amount of latitude to develop the character within how they needed to move the story along. I don't think Tommy said no to me once. I mean, I know he didn't say no to me once. And, Amanda did an interview recently where she said that her processing and the way she works is completely different than the way I work. And that's true. Amanda is an amazing, amazing actor, in that she is very deliberate and very thought out. And she and Tommy, for months, talked about this movie and talked about every scene and worked it through. And she knew what she wanted to do with the character, and he knew what he wanted to do with the story. And on the other hand, I'm much more in the moment. I actually don't like to rehearse. I like to just learn my lines and not learn them with any delivery or with any intent, and then work in the moment. And for me, as a sort of novice actor compared to Amanda, I think that worked really well in this case, because all I had to do was look at Amanda, and I could see in her eyes whether what I was doing was right or working. It was amazing, and so she was incredible. And the other thing about Amanda is, she could have been a real diva with me, and she wasn't. She was incredibly generous. She obviously cared that this movie was more important than anything else, and she helped me a great deal. Like I say, I would just take my cue off of whatever she did. And the other thing I do is, because I'm also a writer and I'm also a director, I tend to do a lot of improvisation. So many of the lines that actually my character does in this movie were not in the script, but they were in the moment. And again, Thommy, your question was Thommy as a director. Thommy was very, very open and accepting and appreciative of that. And we did very few takes on any scene. I would say most scenes were like one take.
Wow.
Part of that was Thommy and Amanda were incredibly together on what they want to accomplish. And then, like I said, as far as I was concerned, I was really taking my cue from Amanda in the moment. But not just dialogue. For instance, there's a scene, you've seen the movie, there's a scene where I pushed the bowl onto the floor, and there's a scene where I take my spoon and I catapult mashed potatoes at her.
Yep.
That wasn't in the script. And Thommy didn't know I was going to do that, and Amanda didn't know I was going to do that. The truth of the matter is, I didn't know I was going to do it.
Wow.
Right? But in the moment when there was this energy between us and what was happening, and again, I would just watch her, and I could tell whether I was pushing her buttons. And then I would just, because I got into pushing her buttons, I would keep pushing the edge of the envelope on how far I could push her buttons. So that's how a lot of stuff came about. But so much of it was because Thommy was, as a director, is really open to the input. He doesn't stifle you. He doesn't inhibit you. And Amanda is such an incredible actor that even though she had it all planned out in her head pretty much, and maybe I'm misunderstanding what she was doing, but she wouldn't let what I did throw her because she would be in the moment too. So, Amanda is one of the most beautiful women I've ever met.
I agree.
And what makes her a great, great actor is she is really ugly in this movie. And she can allow herself to be ugly, to be the character. And that's much harder for a woman to do than a guy to do.
Yep.
It's just, and, I'm really cruel to her, as the character is. I'm really cruel to her. And I had to be in the moment because if I stopped to think about it, I couldn't be cruel to her as a person. She's amazing. She was helpful. She's beautiful. And if I really wasn't the character, I just couldn't have done it. So it was a quite interesting experience. And I'll always be thankful for her to giving me the opportunity, and for Thommy being a really great director. Like I said, a director needs to be responsible for the story, and the actors need to be responsible for the character. And that's the kind of environment we had with Thommy.
And you know something with Thommy, too, what he did, and I sent him an email, and I just praised his work in this film. He took, I've often told people here in New Brunswick that we're making films, I said, if you don't have a big budget and you can't create this and create that, find a location that has extraordinary personality and let that be part of your character. Because if you find an interesting location, that solves a lot of the visual appeal of the film without having to go into CGI and this, that, because of your budget. And that house, I thought, was just, what a great find, and the way the walls were painted, and just little things like the little star clock thing that was on the wall there. I just kind of noticed when she comes down the stairs, like little things like that just kind of stood out to me. Or the layout where the kitchen was, and the little steps lead down into the living room, and whatnot. Little things like that, to me, added to the film and worked, makes the film look more expensive than it really is.
Well, he did a very clever thing when he worked with the writer developing the screenplay. They really made the location a character. because the location presents a personality, and one of the personalities is that it's really incredibly sort of claustrophobic. It almost doesn't allow you to escape the characters, the other characters. And as far as the things you talked about the clock and the colors of the walls and all that, I'm not 100% certain, but I think they painted some of those walls. I think that was part of his vision. And of course, I know they added some of the propping, like the clock and that. But the real thing was, from day one, from the screenplay and in the pre-production, the house was a character. And that allowed it to be done on a relatively small budget. And it was a really tiny budget. But one thing that makes Thommy a good director, and another thing that makes Daniel such a great producer, is that limitation of funds doesn't show up on the screen.
Yep.
And that's the trick. That's the real trick.
And some of the interesting images too, like there's a scene where there's a face emerging from water, and it's all red around, and I won't give anything away on that scene, but that up close, just like the front of the movie case, the poster, you just get that face, and it's surrounded by red, and what a great shot that was, and it shows that again, you can take a limited budget, but you can still be creative with what you do. And Thommy definitely has a creative eye in how he can shoot a scene.
Yes, he does. And I think I had read another interview that Thommy did. I wasn't part of any of this conversation, but I believe when they developed the screenplay, they actually had a different ending.
Yeah, they did.
And Thommy just knew that ending wasn't right, and that's when he came up. The scene you're talking about is an end scene.
Yeah,
it's really powerful. But when you talk about no special effects, that also brings up the fact that everything that you see on camera was real, and there's a scene I do that is so real that it almost became too real, and I don't want to say, you've seen the film, so
yep.
So you can pretty much guess what it is, but I don't want to give it away.
No. For
people that haven't seen the film, but on low budget films, you're not working with a lot of the departments. You don't have special effects people. You don't have people that handle people falling off of roofs and crap like that. The actors just do what they have to do. And Amanda certainly did that, and I did too. And the other people in the film too. There's some supporting cast members who do a really good job in their roles, and in a way, the supporting cast roles are sometimes harder because you have such little screen time and you have such little exposure to what the main characters are doing that you're not always sure that what you're doing is right. But again, Tommy's guiding it, so that's fine. But they all did a really good job, everyone in this movie, and everyone was fully vested in making this work.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, like there was some scenes in it that were almost comical, but yet almost like heartbreaking. Like the scene where you're on the couch and you intentionally wet yourself, and she gets so angry,
Yeah, well, there's a lot of comedy and drama, and there's a lot of drama and comedy. And a good writer, screenwriter, and a good director know that you got to have some sort of yin-yang thing happening, all right, because life's like that, And Amanda has a really great sense of humor besides sense of timing. So, yeah, it was that stuff was written in there. That kind of like make it play it this way, but make it seem another way kind of thing.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Amanda for a long, 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 long time. Loved her in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and I told her in the interviews that she's like a distraction in Fast Times at Ridgemont High because she's sitting behind Sean Penn in that movie. And of course, Sean Penn was the famous Jeff Spicoli, and she's sitting behind him in that classroom. And I said to her, I said, I'm too distracted by that pretty blonde sitting behind him. He can't steal the scene for me, you know. And of course, she was in, of course, A Nightmare on Elm Street as Tina Gray. And I appreciate the fact when I got this Blu-ray in the mail, I got a signed photo of her as well. So I really appreciated that.
Well, you know, an actor like Amanda, that's something that works against them. For a great deal of their careers. I mean, if they really are a beautiful woman, people start just sort of only recognizing that and not recognize what they're doing. And I think that's been a lot of what's happened to her. I mean, I got to tell you, I know I've worked with her mano a mano, and she is unbelievable. You know, people have said that she should get an Academy Award for this movie. You know, of course, these kind of movies don't get into the running, but she brings such real, raw reality to this that it is definitely an Academy Award consideration performance.
Yep.
I mean, she lays it all out there.
Yep.
I mean, what you're seeing is a rawness to her and an ugliness that she allows herself to have. I mean, I was opposite her, and I was dumbfounded by it.
Yeah, and there's, you know, when actresses get older, parts get harder to find, and which is unfortunate because, like I said, I still think she's beautiful. She's kept herself really well. But it's interesting because that plays into the film too, because there's a scene where she's supposed to meet the guy of her dreams from the years ago from high school, you know, and he's in town, and she has these fantasies about coming together with her perception of what he looks like. And of course, when he shows up, he's not only not alone, he's got his wife with him. He doesn't look quite like the fantasy, and your heart just breaks because she went out of her way to get dolled up and that dress on, and you feel so bad for her. And that perception is the same with the movies as well, because unless you know Meryl Streep and Diane Keaton and Helen Mirren you still see them, but there's so many other talented older actresses you don't see much anymore, and it's because they got this whole older man, younger woman thing that's like a woman has to be young and sexy when there's a lot of older women who are also beautiful and sexy, and they can portray that.
Yeah, well, you know, first of all, it's easier for older guys to get parts than older women. It's really, really hard for older women, and that has a lot to do with the screenplays. But the actors that you mentioned, the female actors, you know, they're box office. They're guaranteed box office. So the producers aren't that afraid of taking a chance on them. You know, Amanda is not considered a big box office. You know, she could be if somebody gave her the right part and the right exposure, but producers tend to be very shy about that. They well, let's go with this one. We know that even if they don't do a great job with the part, we'll sell tickets. It takes a lot of courage to just buy into somebody because you see something there, you see the talent there. And, you know, Amanda has a huge pool of work, but, you know, you also deal with the thing that everyone's not familiar with her work. I mean, if you told people the things that she's done, the list of things she's done, they would say, oh, that was her, she did that. Well, you know, but Yeah, there's a prejudice against old, and she's not that old. When we're talking
Nope.
about older women, I mean,
No, she's
Amanda
not.
is not that old, and she. I really hope that somehow this movie gets the attention of something bigger for her, because she certainly paid her dues.
And she deserves
certainly
it.
Could bring anything to anything, and she just needs somebody that's got the courage to believe in her like she believed in me.
And you want me to bring something up? There's so many horror movies and slasher films that come out. Of course, they're aimed at teenagers, but they got these young cast that nobody's heard of. But yet the Id, which is a terrific psychological thriller, you got somebody like Amanda who has done A Nightmare on Elm Street, who's done Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Silverado and whatnot. And I find it funny they can't bank on her, but they can bank on a lot of these, and this is nothing against these young actors, but a lot of them are kind of nameless. Like, look, when Final Destination came out, had a whole list of people, but nobody knew who they are.
Yeah, well, the reason that horror films are, have a niche, and they have a definite following, and they have a passionate following, but they're certainly not mainstream, and there's certainly a lot of them done, and a lot of them done for little or no money. So, one of the biggest costs of a film is the cost of the talent. Yeah. Now, I know that Thommy brought Amanda in because he's known her for a long, long, long time, and like yourself, has admired her work and what she does and whatever, and he jumped at the chance to be able to get her because he is a director, and Daniel a producer that can see talent, all right? Yep. And so they jumped at her, and they made her an offer that she couldn't refuse, which was not really, I don't think, financial. I don't really know what her financial thing was, but I'm guessing from everything I've heard and read that the offer was that here's a film that's an hour and a half long, which she's in just about every minute of it.
Yeah.
I mean, this really is a vehicle for her.
Yeah.
And even though I share lead credit, she's the lead. It's her story, and she is amazing. And again, I don't have near the time on screen that she has. Now, I mean, I do think that it would have been hard for her to have her character without my character working against her, but it really is her vehicle. And I think that's how Thommy got her. It didn't have to go with somebody that had no name.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you, he got a winner in you. Like, of course, you played the wheelchair-bound father. And
right.
I'm going to say it, you're great in the movie. And I love the fact, because when I went into this movie, I said to my younger brother, I predict the movie's going to be like this. And it totally was the opposite to what I thought was going to happen, Well, I came into it, I thought it was going to be like Psycho, only instead of Norman and Mother, it would be Meredith, Amanda, and hearing the voice of the father. But no, you're actually there. And I'm like, I'm glad that fooled me, And another thing I like, too, is that Thommy didn't reduce it to a slasher film. And I'm not trying to look down on slasher films, but I love it when the couple visits, he doesn't treat it like here's two more people to off, like to kill off in the movie, Instead, he examines what these people are now compared, or especially the fella, compared to when she once knew him, and went with the inner turmoil that's going on inside her mind and emotions. I love stuff like that Thommy brought to this. It was fantastic.
Well, I think I have to tell you, I had never even watched a horror film before I did this. This is not my genre. This is not something I enjoy or like or are passionate about. So I can't really talk a lot about this, but now that the film is cut and I can see it, I told all my friends it was a horror film. But it's really a psychological thriller because it's not a slasher thing.
True.
And what Thommy did, and what the working with the writer Sean Stewart, is they created something that's the horror of it is really very cerebral.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, you of course played the wheelchair-bound father. Now, did that? How did it take for you to get used to using the wheelchair? Did that take long, or?
No, it was because I didn't. The wheelchair was only one of many props or scenes. There aren't even that many scenes of me in the wheelchair. If I had to be in the wheelchair constantly, then I would have. The way my process works, I would have gotten a wheelchair and I would have worked with the wheelchair and I would have learned to do wheelies in it and spin in it and all of that stuff. But you've seen the movie. The wheelchair is very sort of incidental in a way. The only time the wheelchair actually sort of worked as a wheelchair was there's a scene where I berate her and tell her to go do something and quit messing with me, and then I spin around 180 degrees to ignore her and look at the TV. That took no skill at all. So no, the wheelchair wasn't a biggie.
Yeah, and yeah, you mentioned earlier other cast members, and they kind of brought in kind of a sunnier part. Like, it's so dark in the house with what's going on emotionally. Then you got these sunny characters on the outside, and you had the woman that's delivering the groceries. I'm trying to find her name as
Jamie Grant.
Jamie Grant, that's right. And I guess this was her first film.
Yeah, another beautiful woman. And she did a good job. That was a tough part. I got to tell you, I'm glad I had my part and not her part. That was a really tough part.
And she was also made a very good impression, and she was like that sunny part of the outside, and of course you had the couple that show up there. The fella's now married, and you can see from they're like on that outside that Amanda's character Meredith, she just longs to get out, go to the high school reunion where she can be happy, but she can't seem to get out from gazing out that window because she's being held back by your character, who's dragging her down, not just physically but emotionally.
Well, that's what's interesting about the psychology of this, is that one could blame it all on the father, but the father is certainly a part of her prison, but the real person who's victimized her is herself.
That's true. Yeah.
I read an interview that she did, and they talked about the fact that she never grew up. That they said she was still 14. I think 14 is probably, if it was a senior prom, then 14 is a little young. But yeah, she never really matured as a woman in the world, and she just didn't let that go. And a lot of that had to do with her. It didn't have to do with just with the father. I think the father, what's so abusive about the father is the father takes advantage of it. I don't think he creates it. I think he takes advantage of it. And I think that's what makes him even crueler.
Yeah.
Is that rather than help her out of it, he actually sort of pushes her further into it.
Question, what was your favorite scene to shoot?
Oh, interesting. I didn't have a favorite scene. I shot for 11 days with Amanda, and boy, I would do any one of them again. It was such a great working experience. Again, between Amanda, Thommy, and the producer Daniel, it was just it was just great. I had a great time.
Tell me about Daniel Ferrand. I mean, he was involved in the Halloween franchise.
Very smart. He's very calm. He quietly takes care of any issues in the background. You don't even know they're going on or happening. He always seems to have a solution. And he has a calming effect, I think, on everybody and everything.
Yeah, and he also had some experience in this. Thommy was very, very, very lucky to make these connections, because that can be difficult for a first-time filmmaker. But he showed really.
Is it luck or is it by design? I think Thommy knew exactly what he was doing and who he was connecting with.
Well, he proved that with those Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street documentaries. Like, he reeled in all these people, and that in itself, like, I don't even know how. I can't begin to think how he put that all together. But I'm really glad he was able to make this film, and I do hope that he's able to make more. I feel bad that the film did not get what I would consider a proper release. I think it's definitely well worth seeing. In fact, I'd say it's one of the best films of the year, and that's just going by the fact that I've seen a lot of junk at the theater this year. I've seen a lot of good stuff, but I think this was definitely better than the last Blair Witch film that came out by far.
Well, probably the only thing harder than actually making a film is getting it distributed. And I know that they worked a long, long, long time on how they were going to get this out there and distribute it. And, we did one film festival in L.A., and which was, for me, incredibly interesting because it was my first ever venture on the red carpet. It was the first time I had ever seen myself on the big screen. I mean, it's kind of takes your breath away when you see yourself, and your nose is as big as a Buick, and we won the best horror film in the festival. So that was the start of it. And then it went, instead of going the film festival route, they decided to go with the Blu-ray release. So, it's hard to, everything about this business is hard. This film has been, I don't know, 3 years in the making or something like that. I mean, we shot it 2 years ago. There's not a lot of immediate satisfaction in the film business.
No, I see that right around here. We just got done the Silver Wave Film Festival here, and I interviewed one of the film makers from Prince Edward Island, and in Canada, and especially in Canada. It's hard to, unless you got American backing, it's very difficult to get films made here, especially here in New Brunswick. We struggle with it bad, but I know we had Hobo with a Shotgun. I know it was shot in Halifax, and that was certainly promising, but but sometimes it takes, to get a performer that can back the film, like in terms of selling it. Like Hobo with a Shotgun had Rutger Hauer. I mean, he was in Blade Runner, and that was exciting that they were able to get him in that, and it was shot in Halifax. And of course,
well, that's another reason why people pick people like Meryl Streep when they're doing a film. It's because of what you just said. They can get those people out there on the shows promoting it, and it automatically gets more attention and more ticket sales. There's a lot of very talented movie makers, and there's a lot of very talented writers and actors. And somewhere along the line, you just need a little luck. Yeah. In every creative arena I've ever been in, I've seen incredibly talented people that can't get arrested. And I see other people who are just hacks who happen to be in the right place at the right time. Talent is just the price of entry. After that, you need some luck. If I have any talent at all, right, what happened to me with the id is I had some luck in that Amanda saw something in me that she felt she had to sell me to Thommy. So, never underestimate luck.
Have you seen any of other Amanda films?
Ah, boy, that's a question I've never been asked, and I guess I didn't ever want to be asked. I've never seen any of her other films. First of all, I don't watch horror films, I've never seen Fast Times at Ridgewood High, and I don't know why particularly. I just haven't. She does a lot of television and has done a lot of television. I think I probably have seen her on television, on CSI and stuff like that. But, the thing about character actors, because Amanda works as a character actor.
Yeah.
In the beginning of this interview, you said, I don't look the way I looked as on scene. You don't always recognize them. Even as an actor, I don't always recognize other actors. I mean, I've found myself many, many times saying, oh, that was her. Oh, I didn't know that was her.
Yeah.
It's almost, in a way, it's a compliment. But I have no top-of-mind consciousness of actually seeing any of her other work.
I gotta say, Fast Times is my favorite of her films, and I would like to do something nice with that film for its 35th anniversary next year, and hopefully, I can get Amanda back in here for that. But we'll wait and see what happens with that next year.
Actually, Amanda's birthday is
coming up shortly.
It's Thanksgiving, which you guys don't celebrate, obviously, but it's Thanksgiving.
We celebrate it in October.
Mm.
Yeah. Actually, I have the birth dates of all my interviewees on my calendar, so that I can always send them birthday wishes, because, I like to stay connected with people I've interviewed, and in case I get anything else they're promoting, and, I can do that. And, Amanda's birthday is coming right up. And like I said, and as you said, she still looks good,
Man, I've seen her in person. She doesn't look just good. She looks great.
She is she's gorgeous. She's gorgeous. I'll throw that out there. She's gorgeous. So what, you got any films coming up? I know it's on Internet Movie Database. I know you got some short films, but any features?
Yeah, I got about 5 films that I'm waiting for people to finish, but nothing's at the level of the It as far as this is a feature. This is the only feature I've done. The others are shorts, and a lot of them are things that I think came out very nice, but they're probably not going to have much of a market anywhere. If anything, they'll wind up in a film festival. The irony is I'm in New York at the moment, and of course this was done in California, and I lived in California, and since this has come out, I've gotten about 10 requests to audition, but of course they're all in California. That's the way life goes. I'm in New York, and now there's this interest for me in California. So,
you don't have any desire to move there?
What, to New York?
No, to California.
Well, I lived in California for years, and then I had decided that what I really wanted to do was get an RV and travel around the country. And so I decided to come back east, where I'm originally from, to spend some time with family.
Okay.
And so, like I say, now the timing of it was stupid. I should have stayed in California, especially with the press the It is getting.
Do you have any favorite places you've visited?
What, in New York?
Well, like you said, you RV and travel. Like, is there any favorite places?
I haven't got my RV yet.
Oh,
and it's still something I'm trying to work out. But nowadays with the internet and satellite and cell phones, and you can be anywhere. And so that's what I decided I was going to do: travel around, meet people, see things.
Yeah.
And but I haven't done that yet.
Have you ever been in Canada?
I have not been to Canada. I was actually thinking of going through Canada because a trip I would like to make is go up the Alcan Highway to Alaska.
Okay.
And on the way, sort of introduce myself to some of Canada. But I would, with my RV, I'd certainly come to Canada as long as the Canadians would allow me into the country.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Hints on the election, huh?
I don't want them to think that I'm coming up with my RV because I don't like the government, though. I don't want
to. Yeah, actually, you're my first interview since Trump got in. Oh, I hope that's not a bad vibe for you.
What, me? No, I don't think you want this to be a discussion about politics.
No, no. But if you go travel in your RV, you got to come here to New Brunswick. I mean,
I will, and I'm going to come and look you up.
Yeah, come and look me up. Come in here and do a live interview here in the station. It's And
it's me because I'll be wearing my jeans and my beat-up flight jacket, just like you saw me.
There you go. Yeah, Yeah, I'm trying to get a little bit of New Brunswick out there because we're kind of ignored by. I never hear New Brunswick mentioned in the movies, And,
so you're gonna have to write a screenplay.
Well, you know what? I've been reviewing movies since 1996, and I've been doing this radio show since 2005, and I'm a volunteer here, and. I just started podcasting we just got podcasting in the last few years, and my first interview was with Thommy Hutson of The Room, and after that, I just kept getting more, and I don't mind reviewing the movies. I still review the movies, but I kind of love doing these interviews, and it's nice to give a movie like The Id a nice, good promotion. Hopefully this interview will allow some people to go and check this out. It's certainly a great movie. It's well worth seeing, and you and Amanda were wonderful in it, and I hope that this interview will allow other people to whet their curiosity and check it out.
Well, now since it came out, it's in a new phase, and it's actually on Amazon streaming and on iTunes for like $4. So it's not a big commitment.
No. Well, before we close off, I'm going to tell you first when this interview podcasts out, I will send you a link so that you can post it wherever you please.
Okay.
Now, I hope you're patient because this interview will not air until next year because you're my 60th interview and I'm only on live once a week. And just this past week, I played interview number 47. So I got like 13 ahead of you. And because I'm only on an hour during those weeks, there's a few of those I have to play in two parts, like Lisa Wilcox, for example.
Well, whatever. It has to work for you. And the truth of the matter is, whenever it works for you, it'll work for us. I mean, publicity is welcome whenever it happens.
Yeah, but I love doing this. But the interview will be on the CHSR site. Like when I link it out to you,
okay.
It'll be on the CHSR site for probably about 3 months, and then it's going to go onto my YouTube channel. I've got a YouTube channel. It's got 31 of my interviews on it right now, and number 32 will go on this Friday. And because due to server space here for the station here, I opened up a YouTube channel so it has a permanent home for my interviews. And I guess I wanted to know if it's okay if I could use some headshots of you to go along with the audio.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. And I love this beautiful autographed, all these signatures on this. Wow. And I got to say, again, great movie. And I'm really glad that you had this opportunity, and I hope people check it out. And I hope they check you out, I mean, as much as we love Amanda, I got to say, you hold your own with her in that, and you're great. I mean, I got to hand it to you. You're fantastic in this movie.
Well, thank you. I haven't learned yet how to take a compliment, so I'll just say thank you. And thanks for the interview.
Yes, and before you go, could you please do a plug for my show?
Sure.
Yeah, just state your name and say you're listening to my real name, of course, Greg Gilbert, and my show is called Python's Paradise. So just say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise in New Brunswick, Canada. Is that okay?
I'll try to remember all that. Okay. You ready?
Sure.
Hi, this is Patrick Douglas Peduto from the ID, and I'm listening to Craig Douglas on, I forgot now the call letters. Let me write them
Actually,
down.
you forgot my name, Greg Gilbert.
Did I do your name wrong, too?
You called me Craig Douglas.
Did I really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, isn't that interesting? Okay, hold on a minute.
Just remember Greg Gilbert, Python's Paradise in New Brunswick, Canada.
Greg Gilbert.
Yeah. Python's Paradise, like the snake.
Yeah, Python's Paradise.
There you go.
And Frederick, what is it?
Yeah, Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada.
Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada.
There you go.
Let's try it now.
Sure, go.
Hi, this is Patrick Douglas Peduto from the ID, and I'm listening to Craig Gilbert of Python's Paradise from Frederick, New Brunswick, Canada. There
you go. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for the honor and pleasure of interviewing you. And this is great. I look forward when this goes out. Like I said, I'll link it to you, and then eventually it'll be on my YouTube channel. And I'll also send it to Amanda and Thommy as well. They'll probably be interested to hear this when it comes out as well.
They will. Okay, man. Thanks a lot.
God bless you, man.
Yeah. Break a leg.
I hope to see you soon in another feature. You deserve it.
Thank you.
God bless.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.